Hi everyone, it's me, Sandy Cruz of Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. For years now, I've been bringing to you conversations about wellness from experts from all over the world. Whether it be suggestions in how you can age better, biohacking, alternative wellness, these are conversations to help you live your best life. I want to live a long, healthy, and vibrant life. Never mind all those stigmas that as we reach midlife and beyond, we're just going to shrivel up and die with some horrible disease. Always remember, balanced living works. I really look forward to this season. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. Today, my conversation is with Dr. Dr. Efrat Lamandre. She is the founder of the New Method, and new is spelled K-N-E-W. Now, Dr. E has been on my podcast before. She was on episode 165. It was all about fatty liver. So go and check out that episode. I absolutely love Dr. E. She considers herself a medical disruptor. I love that because she is traditionally trained, Western medicine trained, but she calls out things that just don't make sense because the facts are this. We all know this. When there is balance lost, there is typically something lost in our wellness. So definitely share this episode with anyone who might benefit. It's all about fibromyalgia. It might be a little bit controversial to those of you who have been diagnosed with it, but the whole point of this podcast is just to simply have you look at things in a different way and look at a different perspective that may actually benefit your wellness. Please follow me on all my social media channels. It's Sandy K Nutrition everywhere. And I'm just going to take a minute just to talk a little bit about authenticity. I've been a little bit miffed, let's just say miffed, maybe even cynical about the whole social media world, where I feel like a lot of this world has become so fake, so contrived. Even podcasts, they all look the same to me. I was just speaking this morning about how I woke up to 30 messages in my spam folder. A lot of them are from these quote unquote podcast promoters. They're all bullshit, you guys. So I woke up to that. I also woke up to about 10 or 12 messenger messages, through Facebook of people from foreign countries wanting to promote my podcast. So let me break this down for you. Anybody who's listening, it's really important. If you're a business, the majority of these podcasters who are not within the Maniverse, meaning not the Peter Attias or the Huberman or Joe Rogan, because he gets into a lot of the health stuff. Anybody who's not within the Maniverse probably does fake downloads. Trust me on this, you guys. I have been approached. Oh my God, I can't even tell you. Thousands and thousands of these fake podcast promoters. And quite frankly, I'm tired of it. And I have tried to go head to head with Upwork and Fiverr on this, that these people are fakes. And I feel I guess, a little bit cynical because I'm not sure what's real anymore. You go on Instagram and the only reels that do well are the ones that are using these fake AI generated, or people who do these little clips. They all look the same. But Instagram pushes this. And I do all of my own podcast editing. I do all of my own creative. I don't use an agency. And I'm like one of none that does this in 4.5 years of podcasting. So I rely on my audience. And this is where you come in. And this is where I need your help, because I feel like this world is every day losing more and more authenticity. And I feel like I'm one of these few that are left standing that doesn't use these fake bots or AI generated content. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to have to survive. Maybe I'm going to have to survive by using one of these companies for all these fake download shit. Here's the facts. I have 1.3 million downloads. After 4.5 years, I speak on wellness from a woman's perspective, which is not that common because, as I explained, the manaverse, they really occupy most of the audience. So I speak on wellness and prevention and proactive health from a woman's perspective. Past midlife, I'm 54 years old, in menopause, going through it without a thyroid gland. So I'm going to ask you to do this. I'm going to ask you to follow me on all of my social media channels, Sandy K Nutrition. I'm going to ask you to actually engage with my content. Share it, save it, like it, comment on it. Do anything just to kind of keep me afloat, you guys. I'm also going to ask you to share this podcast episode with someone else. I'm also going to ask you, if you listen on any platform that allows you to rate and review, do so. Please rate it, review it with a few words. That also helps. I've also released my Essential Thyroid Guide this year. Remember, it's a guide. One of the comments that I received, so I've gotten great reviews on it, but one of the comments was that it's just a pamphlet and it's not clinical or not anything that's medical. I'm like, I made it very clear. It's a patient advocacy guide. It's a very introductory guide for those of you who want to understand this important little gland, which I lost back in 2011 due to thyroid cancer. So it's a simplified guide. There's enough clinical books out there. The reason I put this out was for you to help you advocate for your own best health. That's why it's there. It's available on Amazon, everywhere. I have just finished my book proposal. I'm not sure how or where I'm going to publish this. I know if I publish it with a proper book publisher and literary agent, there will be more clout attached to it. But I'm not sure if that's the route I'm even going to go, because that may affect my creativity. So, my friends, I've given you a little bit of homework. I am going to plead, that if you want to keep hearing my voice, to do all of these things for me. And definitely go and follow Dr. E of the New Method anywhere on the socials. She's really somebody I align with, and she's doing good out there, guys. So with that, here is my amazing recording all about fibromyalgia with Dr. E. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. Today, my special guest is Dr. Efrat Lamandre of the New Method, or Dr. E, as everyone calls her. She is a medical disruptor, disrupting and reshaping healthcare. She empowers patients to recognize that their symptoms are not in their head. As a public speaker and best-selling author with over 5 million followers on various platforms, Dr. E is passionate about promoting longevity and inspires individuals to realize that they can achieve peak performance at any age. And I have had Dr. E on my podcast before. We talked about fatty liver, and that was such a great episode. I'm going to have to link it in the show description. But today, Dr. E is back to talk to us all about fibromyalgia and why it is an unacceptable diagnosis. This is going to be a great conversation because people hear a lot about fibromyalgia. And it's like, well, what is it? Like, well, today we're going to break it all down and we're going to break down why Dr. E feels that this really isn't an acceptable diagnosis. So, welcome, and I'm so happy to have you back.
Thank you. It's an honor to be back in your community. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun the last time. And I've even been on your podcast. You also have a podcast. So I love it. I love when we all kind of share platforms and experiences and knowledge. So I have to ask you what your story is, how you got into the field that you're in, because you're not your typical medical professional. You really advocate for your patients. And I love that.
Thank you. First, I have to say, like, you have a very wonderful tone and pace when you speak. And like 2 seconds before, for those of you listening, 2 seconds before I was like shoving food down my mouth and like just like at high level, just came from a meeting. And then as soon as you did your intro with your pace and your voice, I like calmed down by like 26 levels. So I just want to let you know that you have a calming effect.
Thank you. That is so good to know. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. And I'm glad I didn't rub off on you because you were just like, and I was like, okay, I'm in, I'm with it.
Good. This is good. Because both of us being up here probably would not be good. So
Would not be good.
Yeah.
The show would be like five times speed.
Yeah.
Yes. So my story is I have a medical practice. It's called EG Healthcare. You know, just think of your doctor's office. I'm a nurse practitioner in New York State. We practice independently. So yeah, I was doing the usual medical stuff. People would come in all the time and get their blood, you know, an annual visit, and they'd say, "Hey, I don't feel so well. I don't feel optimized." And I would say, "Oh, great, let me do all this blood work for you." And I would do the blood work, and they would come back fine. And I would say, "You're fine. The blood work said you're fine. You're fine. Everything's fine." And I really, truly thought that I was doing the best for my patients because that's what I was taught. So we taught medical school, NP school follows the same model. And all of that came crashing down when my wife got sick. And I think you'll hear that a lot for any medical professional that comes over to the dark side, that they either got sick or their family members got sick. And that's when you're like, you really push the limits of conventional medicine in search of personal answers. And you're like, that's interesting. Doesn't have all the answers. And so my wife had 2 autoimmune issues. All that was offered to her was high dose steroids and not really a lot in terms of quality of life or cure or treatment or anything. And so I started digging. This is before the internet is what it was today. I'm an older person.
I'm with you. I think we're around the same age, by the way.
I'm 52. You don't have to disclose if you don't.
I'm 54. I don't care. I'll tell the world. I don't care.
Yeah, so 52. So the internet like wasn't like what it is now, where you could just look something up. So we were introduced to this concept called functional medicine. And I was like, whatever, it's not going to work. I'm in medicine. My wife's in medicine. A lot of friends are in medicine. Functional medicine is absolute quackery, but we were against the wall. So we decided to try it. And they had the audacity to suggest that nutrition has anything to do with health. Outrageous.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it?
Crazy. I hope the satire is coming. He's coming through the microphone. And we were like, sure, let's try it. Like, we'll go on this nutritional plan. We'll try these supplements. And she got her life back within 30 days.
Wow.
It was insane. And I was like, this is crazy. We never learned any of this. So I went back to school and then I got certified at Institute of Functional Medicine. And Institute of Functional Medicine, by the way, It's all providers, NPs, PAs, MDs, DOs. You have to be a provider to get a certificate there. So it's all people who had my experience. We went to school for many years. We did conventional medicine, and then we suddenly got hit by limits, and then we go back to school to get certified. And then I got my PhD in integrative medicine, and over time, I just became an advocate for my clients, and I try to speak the truth everywhere I go. And yeah, that's the story. That's how I got here.
So, it's interesting because I don't think people now it's a nurse practitioner, but you also have your PhD. So,
Yes.
what a lot of people don't really understand is that a nurse practitioner is like almost like a doctor, like meaning a traditional Western medicine physician, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you clarified that because it's one of the other reasons I'm a health disruptor. So I'm a health disruptor in the sense of like I'm advocating it's not in your head, but I'm a health disruptor also in my nurse practitioner advocacy. So NPs have to be RNs first, and then they go back to school and become nurse practitioners after X amount of years as RNs. And then they come out with the ability to prescribe,
Yeah.
diagnose, do everything. So primary care to primary, they tend to be, you could be family, pediatric, geriatric. So primary care to primary care, it's the same. The difference is state by state. So like New York, there's no difference. New Jersey, there's some difference. So it depends on each state, but that's more of like a legal constraint, but we all go through the same education. But more than 25%, more than 25 states, more than 50% of the country already has full autonomy for NPs because there's a primary care shortage in this country. And we are the ranks that are going to fill that shortage. So this is the reality. And then some of us go on to get a PhD in something or a DNP. So you are, could be Dr. So and so, but you're not MD at the end. So I am Dr. E, the NP with a PhD. And that's where it all comes from.
Okay. I think it's important to clarify that because even though most of my listeners are in the US and have seen nurse practitioners, in Canada, it's kind of coming more known, which I think is good because we have a real problem with not enough support in the Western medicine model.
It's actually becoming increasingly popular in just about every industrialized country because of the same thing. We're faced with the same thing. People are not going to med school to come out to be primary care. It's not making sense anymore for them in the amount of time where they can perhaps be in dermatology or plastics or something like that. So there's a shortage worldwide. Like Australia just passed legislative autonomy for nurse practitioners, I believe. So it's just happening across the board.
That's good.
And both professions have their pluses and minuses, but one of the beautiful things that NPs tend to bring to the table is they come from bedside. They come from bedside nursing first. So they come with a very patient-centric perspective, which is often missing for MDs. Not always, but often. So they come from that, and they tend to also really focus on underserved communities that maybe don't have access or are hesitant to access traditional models. And so they're not just solving the shortage for the existing clients, they're solving the shortage for access to care for so many underserved people.
And I think maybe that's where at least part of where your empathy comes from too, right? Like I think that empathy is huge and you've got a lot of it. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's so kind.
I think that's good. So, today we're going to talk a little bit about fibromyalgia. I think most people know somebody who's been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So, what exactly is it? I only know it as like you've just got pain everywhere. That's the way I know it. So, what is fibromyalgia?
Yeah, let's talk about that. And I did it when I did a TikTok called "Fibromyalgia is not an acceptable diagnosis." Man, did people get angry?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I could see it.
So let me just say this: I don't think your pain isn't real. I just think the diagnosis is actually not doing you any good.
Right.
So let's talk about what it is and what it takes to get diagnosed so that we can understand why I think it's not working in your favor when you get that stamp. Because first and foremost, anyone's listening needs to know I'm on your side. I'm on the patient side. I'm on the sick person side. So if I'm telling you it's unacceptable, it's not because I don't believe you. It's because I think there's better out there for you. So fibromyalgia is basically, fibro is like fibers, maya is muscles, and algia means pain. So it's basically a description that says your fibers and your muscles hurt. That's what fibromyalgia means. So it's this long-term condition of the chronic pain in various parts of your body. Just very sensitive. They used to be called like tenderness points. They kind of don't do those anymore, but it's just like someone who's always in pain. They tend to also be fatigued. They often have sleep issues. Sometimes they have what's called fibro fog. They have headaches. They have stomach issues. And then with it comes depression and anxiety. And the way you get that diagnosis is what's called a diagnosis of exclusion.
Oh,
this is really important. It means that they have to first run tests on everything under the sun, every autoimmune test, every imaging, everything has to be proved negative. And then you get this diagnosis that says fibromyalgia. This is the crux of where I have an issue with it, because the patient will come in and they'll say, right, I've had this pain 3 months, 6 months, right, and they start the hunt, and sometimes it takes years to get this diagnosis, right? So they'll go to rheumatologist, they go to primary, go to infectious disease, they go to the neurologist, they get the MRI done, they get everything done, everything will show up negative, and then the provider will have to say, okay, well, you don't have anything else, so you have to have fibromyalgia. So what happens then for a lot of patients is they feel satisfied. And this is like, they're like, yes, I finally have a diagnosis, fibromyalgia. And like, it feels great. Like, it's a big Latin name. It feels like a thing. And you're like, amazing. And so you have this moment. For some of my clients, they have this moment like, okay, it feels good, until you find out, well, what are we going to do about it? Oh, yeah, there's nothing to do about it. So we're going to give you some medication for depression, some medication for your pain, some medication for your sleep, and it's just a whole host of medications that manage your symptoms. But why do I have fibromyalgia? How can I get rid of my fibromyalgia? Oh, that's not the conversation that we're having. Okay, so this is a problem, and we're going to talk about what I think it is in a moment. But not only is it a problem because we're not going to cure, there's no cure or treatment for it or root cause analysis. It's a problem because once you get that diagnosis and you go to the next doctor or medical provider's office and you say, I have fibromyalgia, they are no longer paying attention to you. Yeah.
So there's
the medical to the patient. They're no longer paying attention to the patient. If you're a patient and you're like, wow, I have this diagnosis, I'm going to be taken seriously now, right? And you walk to the next provider and says, what's your medical history? Oh, I have fibromyalgia. No one's taking you seriously anymore. In the world of medicine, it is like the eye roll diagnosis. Oh, fibromyalgia. Okay, this one's problematic. Okay. So not only is it not helping you, you're not getting a cure, but you've just branded yourself as a problematic patient everywhere you go. This is like an unwritten rule among providers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's bananas.
So I have to ask you this. So, you're talking about blood work, and, they'll check for autoimmune conditions and all of that. Are there any specific markers in your blood that would say there's none?
Fibromyalgia?
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
They're toying with there's a cutting edge test called the F/M, I think, test that they're toying with, but it's not specifically really for fibromyalgia. It's for inflammatory markers that are often found in people with fibromyalgia, but of course they have inflammatory markers. So no, right now there's no test that exists, and that is the problem. It's a diagnosis of exclusion.
Sorry, can I just the inflammatory markers going back to that? So you might have like elevated what, like just the CRP or
CRP. You might have some elevated ESR. There are other like cytokines. There are like other lesser known inflammatory markers that have been found among patients who have fibromyalgia. So they're trying to kind of like back into it and saying, well, if we find these, maybe we could save fibromyalgia earlier. But you really can't, because they're non-specific inflammatory markers.
Right. Because the truth is, like, I mean, you could have changes in your, like you said, ESR, CRP, white blood cell count. You could have all these changes if you're just run down and sick,
Of course. You
right?
could do it after coming from a marathon when you're not even run down.
Right.
Yeah, right. So then you might say, okay, well, E, great. So who are you to say this? Then what is my pain if it's not fibromyalgia? So for that, I would have to say this is where the limitations of conventional medicine come in. So in the world, and I don't know if we discussed this last time, but in the world of illness and wellness, on the one hand, you have wellness. I feel great, never felt better. And on the other hand, you have illness. I have a diagnosis. I have lupus. I have, something. There's a big line. Those of you who are listening, I just have one hand up, and the other hand up. There's a big line from the hand that says, I am well, and the hand that says, I am ill. There's a spectrum of unwellness. And that spectrum can last for years of I don't feel gooditis. I have pain. I have fibrofog. All these things. It can be decades. And during the entire time of those decades where you're not feeling well, your tests will be negative.
Right.
You'll be negative until 5, 10, 20 years later. Finally, someone will run a test and it'll be positive. And you'll say, wow, this doctor's amazing. He finally found what I have. No, they've been running the same tests on you every year. It's just you haven't converted. You were seronegative. Your serum was negative. And then you seroconverted at some point. Right? So this time of unwellness is really just a space of pre-disease. It's a different way of looking at it.
Mhm.
Don't give me this diagnosis of fibromyalgia. Let's understand together that I'm cooking something and you don't know what it is yet. That's very different. And by the way, this concept is not just for fibromyalgia. Let's talk about diabetes, right? In diabetes, your A1C of 6.4, you're diabetic. And A1C of 5.7, you're good. In the world of 5.7 to 6.4, we are pre-diabetic. And we happen to have a test around it, something that we could see. But that pre-diabetes window can last for years, decades.
Yeah.
My patients will come in, I say, hey, your A1C's calm now. Yeah, but I'm not diabetic. I'm okay, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then at 6.4, you get this diagnosis, you're converted, and we can medicate you. So conventional medicine starts at that 6.4 at the point of diagnosis. In that pre-diabetes world, it's kind of the world of like the nutritionist. And are you going to move? Are you going to change there's nothing we could do for you conventionally, right? It's just hang out till it comes up. That's what's happening for my patients who are not feeling well. It's this area where conventional medicine has no tools for you. It is not a you problem. It's a systems problem. The system does not recognize you until you seroconvert. Then we can have a lot of meds for you. But in this time that you're unwell, you're kind of SOL in terms of conventional medicine.
Mhm.
That landing?
That hits, let me tell you, because, well, I mean, I'm a nutritionist. It's happened to me. The difference is that I also am I'm trained in functional lab testing for nutritionists, so I look at my blood work unlike no one. And I always advocate that people should know the basics of their blood work. And so, not to be a doctor, but you should have some knowledge in what these things mean. I mean, it's just good for you. And you have the ability to make changes before that diagnosis when you see things that are maybe high normal. I mean, I talk about it even with thyroid. They have this massive window and you only get treatment when you get to the very end of the line, right? But there's so much that you can do within that gray area to optimize your health and not get to the end line.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about that. So even if you are well versed, as you are, these are clients that are going to be negative. So
Right.
well versed.
Yeah.
They know that, and right, they're going to be negative. They're going to get the lupus test. They're going to get the rheumatoid arthritis test. They're negative. Jorgen's negative. Everything's negative. So this is where you kind of have to say, and I am empowering, everyone who's listening, don't get frustrated with your doc. They ran out of tools.
Yeah.
When you're negative, they ran out of tools. So you can't go to a plumber and ask them to do electric. Your plumber's like, you don't have a leak. You can't say, hey, give me a favor. Can you also take a look at my light? No, I can only do leaks. All right, so conventional medicine, when you're negative, that's great. Thank you so much, Dr. PA and NP. Thank you so much. I now have to go to a different specialist. And in this case, the specialist you need to go to is someone like you or me. You need to find someone who works in the land of symptoms, because we are not going. I mean, we'll talk about some specialized labs in a second, but just to stay on this, we're going to look at your symptoms and you're going to say, okay, I have a headache, I have joint pain, I have this, whatever. We do a whole medical symptom questionnaire before we start. And we're going to start lifestyle intervention, because lifestyle is medicine. It's just not recognized by pharma, right? So,
Yep.
broccoli is a medicine.
Oh, definitely.
Right? What is medicine? What is food? Every single thing you put in your mouth breaks down into code. Think of yourself as a computer, breaks down into code. And same thing for the pill that you take, breaks down into a code. Is that code going to insert itself and create healing? Is that code going to insert itself and create toxicity? That's how you have to think of anything you ingest. So food falls in that category too. If I eat a Dorito, it's going to fall into a category that I need to detoxify. I always say Doritos, don't know why. If I eat food like has broccoli, it's going to go down to a code that's anti-inflammatory and helps your thyroid and all these things. So we intervene, you and I and other guides like us, we intervene and we will use your symptoms to see and quantify if the intervention worked. So if I got you off gluten and the next day you wake up and say, oh my God, my brain is getting clearer, my intervention is working. Conversely, if I put you on an elimination diet and absolutely nothing gets better, that intervention didn't work and I have to turn to a different intervention. But not only are the symptoms, do we need to validate your symptoms, we're actually going to use them as a marker to determine our next move.
Yeah. Yeah. Symptoms mean so much. And I don't think that, I think that with anybody, often we'll just go, whatever, big deal. So I have this, so I have that. And you continuously brush it off. And one of the things that I always say is as soon as the symptom lasts a little longer, it's got staying power. That's when you maybe need to figure out different interventions, yourself, depending on the severity, of course. Like if they're really severe, go see your doctor, of course. But I'm just saying, okay, this is so weird. And this might be such a weird question, but can you have like a little bit of autoimmune symptoms before you get the autoimmune? Like, you know, even like fibromyalgia is not classified as an autoimmune condition, is it? Or is it?
No, but it's my contention that you're on your way probably to an autoimmune.
Right.
5, 10 years from now, you're going to be diagnosed with something.
Right, right. So
some other thing.
I'm always like, I wonder if you can have a touch of autoimmune before you have autoimmune, right?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's 100% what I'm saying. I'm saying that just like you're pre-diabetic, which means you have a splash of diabetes.
A splash.
The same thing is with autoimmunity. I just want to, if anyone listening with fibromyalgia, it could also be other things besides autoimmune. We're going to come back to it. But yes, with autoimmunity, that is the whole point. If you are someone who wakes up every morning, I'll give you a classic example. The classic example of rheumatoid arthritis, the classic pain pattern, is someone who wakes up in the morning very, very stiff. And as the day progresses, it gets better. And then that's different, which is very different than osteoarthritis, which is worse at the end of the day after usage. Our osteoarthritis comes with age, it's degeneration, not much to do about it. I walk up too much, my knees hurt, osteoarthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis actually hurts more after not using it. You wake up in the morning, you feel like the Tin Man, and then as the day progresses, it gets better. So if you come and tell me that this is what's going on for you, and your RF factor is negative, rheumatoid factor is negative, I know you're on your way to rheumatoid arthritis because of your symptoms. So yes, to your point, you are pre-rheumatoid arthritis. Now, not only this, by the way, is beginning to get recognized by conventional medicine, because some very forward-thinking rheumatologists will say, you really look rheumatoid. I know you are seronegative, and they will actually start them on medications without without the lab, because they know that waiting for the lab in certain cases is a little late, because you can have permanent joint changes. So this concept of course you're going to have symptoms way before the test comes up, because the conventional medicine is limited. Our testing is pretty wonderful compared to 1950s, but it's not anywhere near where it could be. We don't actually catch diseases very, very early. We catch diseases once certain markers that we know exist, but there's probably another marker that we haven't discovered that comes out 5 years earlier that we don't have a blood test for.
Yeah.
This is why the symptoms are so important. Those symptoms exactly what mean that you are pre-autoimmune. And this brings us back to fibromyalgia. So if you're the person, you wake up, you're stiff, you have this, you have that, you just don't have markers, you probably are on your way to something else, right? And you just want to also just point out there that in addition to autoimmunity, which is highly likely that you're on your way to fibromyalgia, you might also have other things. For example, you might have mold, which we have yet to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
You might have Lyme, which we have yet to talk about. You might have an other underlying infection. And conventional medicine will not test you for these. Right? So I don't know if you had a question there, if you want to just keep going.
No, what I do want to ask, that's interesting because we can get these viruses. Oh God, what's the one when you have mono? What's that? Yeah, that kind of also can be dormant in our bodies for a while, and then they I don't know, they manifest into a disease later. So there's a lot of different factors that you're mentioning there. Lyme, mold, but mold, you know what I saw not long ago? And I thought, wow, that really makes a lot of sense, is that we're exposed to molds and toxins all the time. You know, your tolerance might be different than mine, and mine might push me over the edge to a disease, my exposure, right? Whereas somebody else maybe not. Like, this is where all that individuality comes into play. And same thing with like Epstein-Barr, that has been asleep for a long time and then it reawakens. Like, it's just so complicated.
Right. It's complicated, but more significantly, or equally significantly, it's also unrecognized. So because it's unrecognized by conventional medicine, and I will answer your point about mold in a moment, because it's unrecognized, this is why, again, you're labeled fibromyalgia, because conventional medicine does not test for mold. It has one approved test for Lyme. It won't use alternative labs. It does not really consider chronic underlying infections uh, as an issue, especially viral infections, because there's no really medications for it. So you're not autoimmune, we won't test you for anything else. And so you land on fibromyalgia, which is why it's unacceptable, because you need to keep digging. So we covered kind of like the ones that said, okay, maybe you're pre-autoimmune, let's use your symptoms. That's one group of the fibromyalgia. But now we're on this other group of fibromyalgia. Maybe it's not pre-autoimmune. Maybe I have mold, Lyme, chronic infection, something else, right? So to your point about mold, this is how mold works. There's mold everywhere, and not all mold is bad.
Yeah.
And you can have an entire family living in a house that's filled with mold, and everyone's fine except for you. In fact, this often happens in office settings where like the one person is really sick and everyone else is fine. So it can't possibly be the office. It has to be this person's crazy, right? But in reality, it is the building. It's just everyone else is a good detoxifier. So as you're breathing these in, as you're dealing with it, your body's constantly detoxifying. This is what your body is made to do. It detoxifies. Some of us either can't detoxify well, or we have other things going on, right? Maybe that person has a different underlying issue that the system can only handle so many things.
Yeah.
So what happens with mold is, instead of you consistently breathing it in or ingesting it and peeing it out, people with mold toxicities, it actually stays in their fat cells. Their body does not get rid of it. And now they become mold toxic. They will have symptoms that are very similar to fibromyalgia, especially brain fog.
Interesting.
They have brain fog, they have joint pain, they have stomach, they have debilitating fatigue. And this is why all their autoimmune is negative. They don't have an autoimmune problem. They are mold toxic. They have to be removed from that place or change, remediate the area if they can. And they need a really significant mold detoxification. But these people will not go recognized, right? Lyme is also, it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Now, I have 95-year-old hikers that have had Lyme forever and they're fine. God bless. This is one of those things again. Like we discovered accidentally, I don't even know why we tested it. And I'm like, did you know? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I've been hiking forever. They're fine. They're 95. They never had a problem in their life. But then I have people where Lyme completely debilitates them.
Right.
Quest Diagnostics has a very particular test. If you're positive, you could trust that positive. But if you're negative, you can't trust that negative. There was another lab. I'm not affiliated with any of these labs. I'm not plugging anyone. There was a lab called IGenix located in California. You need a provider to order them for you. They do a whole different kind of Lyme and co-infection testing. If you feel like you have Lyme, you match all the symptoms and your PCP says you're negative, you have to get the IGenix test. It is pricey, but so many positives. These are vetted labs. They're just not covered by insurance. These are vetted labs. They have rigorous testing. This is not like, an Instagram, spit on a stamp and send it in. They need to be ordered. Someone vetted has to know what to do with these results as well. So you could be walking around with Lyme. Again, brain fog, fatigue, joint pain, stomach issues. You look like a fibromyalgia case. And you're not. You walk around with undiagnosed Lyme or co-infection. So this is, and chronic infections also. So you mentioned Epstein-Barr, but there are other infections as well. And while technically you can't do anything about the Epstein-Barr because a virus is a virus, there's probably something else underlying that's kind of causing a resurgence. You have to get to that. Like, for example, if your stomach's a mess and you have leaky gut, then you can have this resurgence. So no, I can't bring your EBV. I can't cure your EBV. Some supplements can help it along. But if we can kind of decrease the thing that's triggering it, patient feels better. H. pylori. H. pylori is a really known bacterial infection in the belly. People don't even know they have it.
Yeah.
You can have it for years and never have a GI symptom. So again, fatigue, belly pain, it just constant unwellness, diagnosis fibromyalgia, you're walking around with H. pylori. And that H. pylori, by the way, could also trigger your Epstein-Barr to go up. So you have this whole world of patients who are never going to get the right diagnosis. And this is why I say it's not an acceptable diagnosis.
Wow, that's fascinating. So really, the long-term outlook for someone who's diagnosed with fibromyalgia, not looking at the root cause or causes, could be an autoimmune condition.
It could be an autoimmune issue or an underlying mold, Lyme, or underlying infection.
Right. But I mean, if you just go the conventional route and you never find out why, then it could progress to a much more serious autoimmune condition, is what you were saying, right?
Well, I'm saying that it's not that the fibromyalgia will progress to it. It's that there was a
Something.
People who are diagnosed with fibromyalgia who are actually pre-autoimmune, right? So
that's that gray area, the touch of.
That's the gray. Yeah, exactly. And the thing about fibromyalgia is that if you get diagnosed with fibromyalgia and you accept that diagnosis, the conversation stops, no further investigation happens. And then you get a list of between 5 and 10 medications to manage your symptoms, and you're never going to get better. Because none of those medications are getting to root cause.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you not to take them. By all means, if you have anxiety, depression, pain, take what you got to take to get through the day. But none of them are curing you or getting to the root cause, right? You don't have a Zoloft deficiency. You don't have a Prozac deficiency. it's helping you with your anxiety and depression, take it, but that's not getting anywhere. So until you start saying, like, I want everyone to buck that diagnosis and say, thank you, I get it that you can't find this, and so you're putting me in this bucket. I'm going to go somewhere else that can find it.
So they have to see an integrative medicine.
Integrative, functional.
Yeah.
They need a different guide.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's good that you did all this stuff. I will tell people, don't skip that. You have to go to primary. You have to start with conventional medicine. Rule out the anemia, rule out the thyroid, like in your case, rule everything out. And then when they can't find it, you go.
You got to keep looking, people. And you did say something that really hit home with me, because it happens all the time. Is you call it primary care. In Canada, we say general physicians, right? And when you go see your GP, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. Your GP is there for certain reasons, and they are there to advocate for your health, but they can't know everything about everything. I see them as generalists. So, right? So I have an endocrinologist because I had thyroid cancer. That's why. And he works with me on that specific issue. But then again, you kind of go, well, our medical system. So you have the generalists, right? General physicians. But then you have specialists that work only in their silo, right? So even though I know as a 54-year-old woman, my estrogen levels could have an effect on how my medications for my thyroid are working, but he won't look at that. He looks only at the thyroid. You see? So an integrative medicine doctor or practitioner kind of looks at all the various pieces of the puzzle. Would that make sense?
100%. On the one hand, I sit on the board of our hospital here locally. And on the one hand, it's miraculous how specialized we are, right? On the one hand, like there used to be a surgeon that was in the entire cardiothoracic, your heart and your chest was one specialty. Now you have specialties on one particular area of the heart for very particular issues. And so on the one hand, it's fascinating how you can dedicate your career to a very particular issue, and it makes you a master of that.
Yes.
It's wonderful and it's great. And if you have that particular issue, you want to find that person. But because of that, we've actually lost sight of the holistic. So that's the price that we've paid. So to your point, I have patients who have like 4 or 5 specialists. They have the nephrologist, the endocrinologist, the cardiologist. They never call each other. They never talk to each other. And the patient is just left. And it's as if your body's not connected. It's as if you're like, go to the kidney. Like, yeah, but the kidney, like, what about, it's not, nothing's connected.
We're pieces. Yeah.
Pieces. And, it is the flip side. We are falling through the cracks, like classically, like I just did a talk on the gut brain connection. So you have anxiety, depression. When was the last time you heard any psychiatrist calling your GI? Like never. Psychiatrists and GI, I mean, no specialists talk to each other, but a GI and the psychiatrists are definitely talking to each other. Meanwhile, all your neurotransmitters are made in your belly. Your serotonin, your dopamine, all made in your belly. Right. So your vagus nerves connects your belly to your brain. Like they are actually physically connected. They're chemically connected. But these are 2 specialists that don't even see a connection between each other. So this hyper specialization certainly has its good points, and I'm not saying, but we do need someone who sees the whole picture, the bird's eye view, and says, okay, this is affecting this, and this is affecting this. And by the way, the entire reason that all these things are falling apart is because you have this chronic inflammation as a result of whatever, mold or gluten or whatever your issue is. And then when you fix that piece, everything gets fixed, right? The kidney gets fixed, the brain fog gets fixed, like it all gets fixed.
Yeah. It's pretty fascinating if you can find that and then make alterations. So let's say, I came in with symptoms of fibromyalgia and we find out that it's mold, related. We do a proper mold detox. And I will say to people, I've said that, oh my God, I know you'll agree with us. If you don't just go and buy a detox box off the shelf, because your chances of actually eradicating the mold out of the body are slim, and B, your chances of the mold recirculating and making things worse are high, right? So like,
Yeah, not only that, but if you're really mold toxic, you run the risk of making yourself so sick.
right, because the body has to be strong in order to detox in the first place.
The body has to be strong. That's number one. So you have to start with elimination diet, fixing the gut.
Yes.
But the other thing is when you get off the shelf, they are at a particular dose. And for patients who are really unwell or really toxic, you have to go to like 1/8 of the dose.
Right.
And there's this concept that they're like, if I take it and I really feel unwell, I'm herxing. There's like this word like that. It means it's no, that's not. You should not feel unwell as you're detoxifying. It's not a pain is gain type of situation. You should detox with hardly feeling it. If you are feeling the supplements, if you're feeling unwell when taking the supplements, you are detoxing too quickly. So you need someone who knows how to guide you through that. So please don't run and get someone to help you.
I couldn't agree more with that, because I mean, a lot of bad things can happen, especially like people don't even realize how, if you're in a weakened state and you don't even have a strong foundation of minerals, you could do a lot of harm to your body if you're trying to detox when your body's not ready.
100%. 100%. You need this. This is a slow and steady game, and detoxing from mold could take a full year, not longer.
Yeah.
This is not a 30, 60, 90-day protocol.
Okay. So like I said, if that was my causative factor, we did the proper functional medicine testing and it was mold related. I know, we would start with diet. We would start with lifestyle, like maybe there's some things we need to change. We need to improve on sleep, maybe exercise more, whatever it is. And then, what else do you do with your patients?
So then there are protocols that have been created by smarter people than me, that I have learned about. And each protocol, believe it or not, is specific to the type of mold that you have. And that protocol will include supplements to help your liver detox, supplements that help bind the mold itself, right? Because the goal of detoxification. So just as a recap, the way our body detoxes all day, it's not, hey, I drank water, I peed a lot, I detox. That's not detox. Detox means, and this is not just a mold, everything your body's doing it all day long. It is converting things from fat soluble to water soluble so you can pee and poop it out. That's what detox means. And you have several pathways in your body that are constantly picking different things up, whether it's your perfume that you put on or something that you smelled or alcohol that you drank, whatever. It's constantly picking it up and converting it into a form that you could pee or poop out or sweat out.
Yeah.
So it's converting it to water soluble. So part of this protocol is finding the right binders for that particular mold to help with that process of making from fat soluble to water soluble. So you have part of it that's going to help you detoxify, part of it that's going to help you bind, and you take it titrated to symptoms. So if I tell you one tablet is the thing, and you take the tablet and you're wiped out on the couch, one tablet's too strong for you, and you go down to half a tablet or quarter tablet.
Mm-hmm.
You find the dose that makes you feel like it's not working. That's the right dose. And you stay on that for a while, and then after a while, you go up a little bit. You go up a little. So the protocols really help you get it out. And so about 3 months later, when you retest your urine, you probably should see that it's higher, that your numbers are actually higher than they were when you started. Because when you first started, what you got in your urine was minimal because it's been stored up in your fat.
Ah.
Yeah. 2, 3 months later, when you retest, now what's coming out now you know whether they're kind of working. So numbers tend to go up higher, and you just keep on the protocol until you eventually eradicate it. That's that's with mold. It's a process. It's
That's
a process.
that's big. I mean, the way that you described it was really good, though. And then, do you encourage patients to do infrared sauna and things to kind of help it along?
I got infrared. I spent some time learning about it because it became really like a fad, and I was like, is this a fad or is this real? It is so real.
It is real.
It is so real. So infrared and sauna are independent of each other. You can do them together, but they both have their. So infrared actually is going to go down to your mitochondrial level and repair whatever you're dealing with. Like if you could afford infrared in your house, just get it. Even if it's just your face, you can get a whole body one. Whatever you can afford, get it. Or whatever you're dealing with, because it's just even if you're like, I feel great, great, use it for anti-aging. The science behind it is insane. Again, I'm not affiliated with anything, just get it. And sauna, remember we said we're trying to get everything water soluble. So when you're in a sauna, you sweat, and that helps with the elimination process. That being said, if you're really, really struggling and really, really unwell, 5 to 10 minutes in sauna can knock you out because
Yes.
yeah. So slow and steady. Do not push. This is not a push through. This is not a more is more.
I'm glad you mentioned that because this is at least, I think it's got to be 6 or 7 years. I talked my husband into, we built a therapy room. And so we have near, mid, and far. So we bought the Juve panel for the near and mid, and then we bought like a sweat far infrared sauna. So, and we built a little room. And you're going to find this really interesting, I know, because I used to be a smoker in my 30s.
Wow.
And I remember doing some testing, heavy metal testing with a naturopath doctor. This would have been in my late 30s. And as a smoker, let me tell you, my levels were through the roof. And
Right?
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And listen, I know that a lot of people are not into hair mineral testing, but I do think while they're not going to be definitive, have you read The Mineral Fix by Dr. James DiNicolantino?
No.
So he talks about the different types of testing for minerals. So heavy metals, minerals. And while hair is not going to give you like definitive exact, he did say, what did he say? That hair is indicative of, oh God, don't quote me on this because I'm not good with quotes, but it was something about the 3 month period.
Yeah.
When you take it closest to your scalp, you can get some idea. Well,
Gives you a general sense.
exactly, exactly. And my levels were through the roof. And then I did hair a couple times in the last few years, and it's almost shocking how little of any of those heavy metals I have. It's amazing. And that's why when you said it's like, yes, the science is there, but like N of one counts too, right?
Of course, it all counts.
It does count. And I find it shocking. So I had to lay off a little bit from the infrared because I felt like it was exacerbating my menopausal issues. So, right, like I was having issues. Yeah, like the rosacea. Okay, I know that near and mid would be good for that, but then the sweat and anyway, so I'm going to get back on it now that I have had this conversation with you, and it's like a reminder, my God, I have this in my basement, why am I not doing this? Right.
You know what? You just brought a good point because you're in the industry, this is what you do, and yet you sometimes fall off certain things. And that's really good. I love that you brought that up because I try to bring up my clients all the time the humanness of it. No one's doing this perfectly, no one's doing this all the time. Just because they're posting on Instagram doesn't mean it's real.
Yeah.
Like there are weeks where I'm not on point with my supplements, and then I'm like, come on, get your act together, or I'll have a meeting with someone like this and be like, I really gotta start taking my amino acid again. So it is just like for anyone listening who might feel overwhelmed by all this, the fact that you're already listening, good for you. It means you're having awareness, you're here. And this is fluid. There's going to be some weeks that you're perfect, some weeks that you're not, but your overall trajectory has shifted away from standard American Canadian living and towards a healthier living. And that shift is all you need. And you slowly every day shift a little bit more. There's like a fluidity. Some days are good, and just like, I'm glad you brought that up because it's really important. Sometimes they look at us as guides and think we're always on point, and we're not. And we need to bring that to attention because it's
Totally.
especially for women, we tend to beat ourselves up.
Totally. And then sometimes it might, whatever practice. So I actually stopped the gym for a couple weeks. But guess what I've been doing? And I'm like, I'm so proud of this. Because something about going to the gym and the whole regimen, because when I was having some pretty major menopausal symptoms, I found it's not good for me. So I was hauling bags of soil, doing all my gardening. I stopped. I know this sounds like, I hope this doesn't come off as pretentious, but I'm like, I started cleaning my own house, like vacuuming, mopping the floors. And I don't mean this to sound, whatever, but I'm like, I gotta, it was like a mental thing for me too, because this is exercise. And this is what we used to do. You're a 70s baby. Like,
Yeah.
people didn't do this stuff for us.
You're designed to move. You're designed to do these things.
Yeah, and then you get this self-satisfaction when you go, I did that myself.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
So mentally it's good. Anyway, we kind of got off topic there, but I do want to touch before we go on the Lyme aspect. So you gave an amazing description of mold and the things that you do for your patients if mold is an underlying factor to fibromyalgia. What about Lyme? Like, how do you help Lyme?
Lyme is very similar, but it will require a different protocol of supplements. So again, as strong as you can in your belly. We don't need additional messes and toxins. As well rested as you can. And then there are different supplement line. Byron White supplement line is really good. Please find a guide as well. And they have like these drops that you take, and the drops are named specifically for which tick-borne co-infection you have. Like, is it Babesia? Is it Bartonella? Like, it's not, Lyme is not Lyme. It's way more segmented. And there's different subspecies, and you really need to target it. And now some people, just like with mold, you might have 2 or 3 different molds going on. So you target the top one. You can have 2 or 3 co-infections with Lyme. So you target the one that's highest, and then you work for that one. And then if you need to, come back to the second, third. So you want someone who's really Lyme literate and can help you through it. Again, not really off the shelf. You don't want to go too fast. And there are times where you actually will need some antibiotics. As much as I try to stay away from it, there are times that, depending how debilitated you are, how bad the infection is, sometimes antibiotics are needed as well. So with Lyme, if you're really unwell, you want someone who's Lyme literate. And then for all chronic issues, something we haven't touched on, and I'll touch on just momentarily, anyone who's chronically unwell also has some central nervous activation. And so everyone should also have some sort of central nervous work, vagal work, whether it's like the Apollo Neuro, it's a wristband that you wear.
Oh, I have that. I recorded with them. They're awesome. Yes.
They're amazing. Apollo Neuro is amazing. Again, not affiliated. Gupta does amazing retraining. It's like meditation that you do at home. But what happens when you're chronically unwell is that your entire system is stuck in unwellness.
Yep.
And addressing that is also really important. And that's especially true of my mold and Lyme patients, because it's years before they get diagnosed. So they're really stuck on unwell.
Oh, that's so good. I'm so glad that you mentioned that whole nervous system component, because I think if you're missing that, if you're not trying to do, and everybody has something that they resonate with, like you can find something. I know I need some shortcuts. I use Brain Tap, Newcom, Apollo Neuro, because I have that brain that's always kind of firing all over the place. So, um, and then you probably have certain herbs that you really like for nervous system as well.
I don't particularly use herbs a lot for a specific nervous system, but
Okay.
if you are really, if you can use like L-theanine and ashwagandha, some people makes ashwagandha makes them higher, some makes them lower. For central nervous system, I'm really more about the modalities.
Oh, that's good to know.
The thing about central nervous system, when I think herbs, I'm thinking like, am I trying to calm down cortisol? Am I trying to create? When I think central nervous system, I'm thinking wiring, right? Hard wiring has happened. So it's easiest to think of it as like a dog that you rescued that was abused. You take it into a safe home and it's safe, but every time it hears a door, it's in the corner shaking.
Yeah.
And it's hardwired to be terrified. You cannot reason with this dog. You cannot necessarily give it supplements either. What you have to is slowly retrain them that when the door happens, that it's still safe. It could take years. You basically have to non-verbally get closer, pet them, calm them, and kind of redo the imprinting. That's what central nervous system work is. That central nervous, you can't talk to it. You can't necessarily supplement it. It needs this. That's why vibrations work. That's why humming works. That's why meditation works. It's kind of like this non-verbal retraining of a very primitive system. That has to happen because if it's like your central nervous system has been abused for so long. If you're unwell for so long, your central nervous system's like, oh my God, we just got to get through this day. Like,
yeah,
every little, oh my God, especially if you're someone who reacts to everything, like everything gives you a reaction, your central nervous system's on max.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different approach to it.
I love it. I love it. All right. Let us know. I think this has been a really good talk.
It was so good.
Yeah, so good. Let us know where everyone can find you.
Thank you. So it's Dr. Efrat Lamandre everywhere. I know it's hard. It's a long one, but as soon as you start Dr. Efrat, it'll pop up.
Yeah.
So Dr. Efrat Lamandre on every platform. I still do some consults if that's what people are interested in, or I also have a lot of free content. Enjoy the content. Just get better.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to share it with someone you know might benefit. And always remember, when you rate, review, subscribe, you help to support my content and help me to keep going and bringing these conversations to you each and every week. Join me next week for a new topic, new guest, new exciting conversations to help you live your best life.